गुड मॉर्निंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। वी गोना टॉक अबाउट what the Chinese have been thinking and what they've been writing and what they have been articulating about the India-China relations. We've had this great thing SCO meet, bilateral, meet with Xi Jinping and Mr. Prime Minister Modi. It's all fine. We came to know about what the official line was, what he spoke, uh, what our prime minister spoke, and all that. But what do the people think? What does the what does the Chinese press think? What is the Mandarin thinking? The Chinese thinking? That is important for us to understand when we deal with China. Look, yesterday we had a terrific discussion with Dr. Sriparna Patak and Vasu Iyengar also says excellent discussion earlier with Dr. Patak. Yes, great. We earlier had a discussion one day back with General Narayanan. He gave another perspective. Yesterday I spoke in the morning about the Global Governance Initiative. And now we're going to talk about what they think. And I'm going to base it on facts. I believe in going by evidence. I believe in going by facts on ground rather than hypothesis. So I'll go factual. It might be boring, but it's what the Chinese really think. Let's get going. First thing, I go back a little. I have to take it back a little because for us to understand where this is coming from. So I'll go back to this tweet by Adil Barar, which he put out before Wang Yi came here 2 weeks back. And he quoted an article by Hai Su. There's no one called Hai Su actually. There's no one at all called Hai Su. So what is this article all about? This is an article which was put out by China before this whole story of India-China relations over the past 2 weeks we've been talking of came out. I'm going to remind you people of that because I'd spoken about this earlier. Notwithstanding, what does it say? That sets the tone for this relationship. It's there in this. Okay, let me expand it. What does it say? To be honest, under the circumstances of having a border dispute, how do you strengthen dialogue, build mutual trust, and maintain overall friendliness? It is very difficult. However, difficult does not mean impossible. Although the clashes were regrettable, at least the two major countries of China and managed not to open fire, and India ultimately calmed down relatively quickly. So he feels that it is India which has calmed down and not China was always calm. Please understand the subtext. So the onus and the India is put on the back foot in this article. And it says China may be vast, but there is not a single piece of territory that can be ceded to others in such a way. So as simple as that, please understand there is no territory which China is going to give you. So the border settlement, if at all it takes place, will not involve ceding territory. It will involve China getting territory. Is that acceptable to us to start with? No. If it is not acceptable, there are no talks really. I mean, that's the fundamental thing. And then he says China and, then the normal thing starts. China and India are inescapable neighbors. Both are ancient civilizations. To judge gains and losses may be merely by temporary or local circumstances as meaning. Then they put the civilizational context in and apply it to USA. The USA has been a nation for less than 300 years. China and India must coexist for long term. From this perspective, it is better for neighbors to interact more during good times, work out principled guidelines to be respected by both sides for the long term, and then get along on that basis. That is better than anything else. How should talks be conducted? Mutual respect isn't that important? If one side only insists on McMahon line, then where is the anything left to discuss? The red line is drawn, and they're not going to cross this red line. And as I go along, you'll see in all this talk which they have done, all this to and fro which has happened between India and China over the past 2 weeks, till our Prime Minister came back yesterday, these red lines have not been crossed. Okay. And this is something which came out yesterday, South China Morning Post. It says Z to Modi. That's what he's been conveyed. That's what they're conveying. That Z has said, don't let the border dispute define China-India relations. So the border dispute, put it on the back burner. So the Chinese position is very clear. The border will not, the border doesn't bother them. They're okay with this border. And this is something which we have to understand. It is we who are not okay with the border. And that also, why? Because they're in an advantage position. If they get South Tibet, that is Arunachal Pradesh or not, it doesn't matter them. It matters us. Whether they, they're at the LAC at this point of time or not, doesn't matter them. They are already where they are and what they approximately claim. Okay. If they come another 5 kilometers this side of the current LAC, it doesn't give them any economic advantage. It gives you geopolitical disadvantage. It gives you political disadvantage. Okay. As far as your cartographic map shows Aksai Chin and you don't get it, and politically it is not compromisable, and they are sitting on it, and they are now they've not only got a road, they're building a railway line through it. Makes it impossible for us not to take the border into consideration. But I will talk of this border maybe tomorrow or day after. I'll do a bit of a research and get back to you on this. But at this point of time, let's go ahead with what they feel. Okay, this is what this chap Lin Min Wang. He's a guy who has been writing on India. What does he say? Right? He's in the International Studies, Institute of International Studies at Fudan University. He says, look, the Modi statement is quite positive, and he goes back into the statements which our Prime Minister has given at various points of time, right? And also the statement which he gave in Japan before he went to China, right? And he says, there are a lot of issues left to be resolved, but we should concentrate on, concrete and substantive measures. All those, what Mr. Modi's talk is welcome, but we should concentrate on concrete and substantive measures. What are those concrete and substantive measures? Basically trade. That's what he says. China-India foreign ministers meeting yielded 10 outcomes, including an agreement to resume direct flights and India, between China and India as soon as possible, and to facilitate economic trade and investment flows. So for them, the concrete and substantive thing is that. It's not the border. There's no talk of border. Okay. Then he says, Trump pushing India towards China is voices made by Indian Americans. Okay. And they are all the Indian Americans or the Indians who are in America are uneasy about the rift between India and US and the proximity between China and China and India, right? And then he says the starting point of restarting or rekindling the Sino-Indian relations is not high; it's low, and hence the scope for improvement is vast. And that's what they will keep talking of. And then this guy called Shang Jian. I don't know who these fellows are, but I picked it up off their media. He's from the Institute of South Asian Studies at the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations, SECUR, one of the leading think tanks on India and China relations. He says, the last summit was a virtual summit. SEO summit, which was held in India 2023. Okay, not last, the last to last, in fact. So he says, compared to that summit, this was better. China organized it better. So that story that China does everything better, and it is better. It contributes more to develop China-India relations. What does he misses out is 23. Our relations were very bad. We didn't want Xi Jinping to come to India. That's why we converted it into a virtual summit. That's a different thing. And he says, look, this multilateral SEO summit attracted Modi. Modi had to come here. So that's the thing. And then, also he says, look, the last India-Pakistan war, uh, as a result of that, the relations between India and Pakistan were bad, and the space for progress there has shrunk. So, and hence, India has to come to China. And India will come here and make, the SEO gave them a platform by which they can talk about this India-Pakistan relationship and put their point of view across. Right. But he says India and Pakistan are both important neighbors of China. And China will keep their, uh, relationship tight with both or other. Okay. Then, since Kazan, that's when we achieved the disengagement part, Modi has consistently expressed positive sentiments regarding Sino Indian relations. Currently, the outside world is very much looking forward to further accelerating cooperation between the two sides in many areas. Which is the outside world? The outside world is China. When it says outside world, it's China. Okay. So, how to increase this whole story, which started in Kazan? Right. Okay. Then everyone comes back to the trade. The border is not spoken of. They'll talk of India, Pakistan as if SEO is giving a platform for us to sort out issues with Pakistan. All that. Okay. Chinese companies in India have previously encountered numerous operational difficulties, which has dealt a blow to their confidence in investing in India and also requires improvement on the Indian side. So, what India should do, what China should do, is not there ever. Okay. Then there's this thing on in Baidu. Okay. A lot of articles I picked from Baidu. Says China Online Review, improving Sino-Indian relations is not an expedient measure but a strategic choice. Right? And he's this chap called Ding Xing Ting. He's a special commentator on China.com. And he keeps commenting on India and China relations. So, what is the crux of this? He says this meeting between Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi has attracted a lot of attention in China, where people debated whether the sudden positive turn in China-Indian relations is a temporary fix. So they're not confident that it's a strategic or a long-term fix. I agree with them. It is a temporary fix. It's only a temporary expedient. Or is it a strategic choice based on the fundamental interests of both countries and the demands of the times? Look, at one level, it is in our long-term interest that we mend fences with China. On that, we should have no doubt. But given the conditions, anything right now is only temporary. And that is what they also feel. There's a mutual feeling on both sides of the border amongst the people. Whatever is happening is temporary. So the outcomes of the Tianjin visit or the summit, whatever you call it, is going to be only temporary. We need to understand this. Don't have any expectations on the Chinese, and we shouldn't give any expectations to them. We shouldn't do foolish things like allowing their apps. In fact, if I look at it, how do you deal with the Chinese? My one line fix is, that's old thing in Bible, do unto others what you expect others to do to you. So give that to the Chinese. If they want some of their apps to come in here, allow our apps to enter them. Otherwise, no go. If one ship comes here, one ship should go there. If one ship enters their port, one ship should enter our port. If one ship load of goods are offloaded here, there also. Right? And that's the way to go forward. This adverse, and of course, there has to be a clear thing that if the adverse trade balance is not reduced, there's no trade, no more. But for that, our government has to have dum. And in fact, I blame this government. I have no doubt in my mind, despite of whatever people have said, it's been 10 years now. In fact, more than 10 years, we have failed. How can we have allowed this trade imbalance to go so much? I don't mind the trade imbalance. We talk of manufacturing, we talk of technology, all that is fine. But in fundamental things, why don't you increase manufacturing in those areas where you are importing from China? Well, it's as simple as that. You want to decrease imports from China? Start manufacturing those items here. They are not rocket science. Okay? Right. Let's get ahead. Then Gao Zhikai. Who's Gao Zhikai? He's Victor Gao. He keeps coming on all TVs. All these channels keep calling him. He is a complete communist stooge of China. We should be very clear. Right? And he's absolutely anti-India. And what has he put out? He says improving Sino-Indian relations is the fundamental interest of both countries. But it must be said that Trump has made contributions this time. So Trump has pushed us. Okay. Bloomberg TV, a mainstream American media outlet, interviewed international affairs. Okay, that's fine. So it is the Trump effect. Well, the Trump effect will last for some time. I already see, how by efforts by the Trump administration and everyone say, trying to reverse this whole story. We'll talk of it tomorrow. I think by day after tomorrow, we'll see. I'll give another 48 to 96 hours. You'll see a reversal starting to take place. Okay. We'll talk of it. And then there's some guy. I mean, I don't know who he is, but there's a common man. There's a common man. He's given an opinion in one of the articles. He says Indians are also trying to get close to the Japanese. So you'll see this Japanese act coming in. So actually, it tells you that our move for our prime minister to first go to Japan is given a big message to China. In general, Indians are integrated with Europe and the United States. It is their observation. And look, let's face facts. That's a fact. We are more integrated with the West than China. Culturally, technologically, civilizational. I would say civilizationally also we are more, with the West. When I say West, even the Middle East is the West to me. Okay, right? He says they can be used. India can be used, not trusted. So the common man feels, how can China use India, not trust it? Okay, what does the Tianjin talk signal? That's the story in this website. And there's a guy called Zhao Rang who says, oh, the normal thing that India and China contribute to about 2.84 billion people and 40% of world population. Both are one of the four ancient civilizations. We have a lot of history, culture, largest developing countries. And this is Narendra Modi's first visit to China in 7 years and all that. He says, then they say candid dialogue between the leaders will help improve bilateral relations. But if you look at what happened, they were hardly but candid. They were not candid. It was just, if you see the statements which our Prime Minister gave and Xi Jinping gave now, and what was there in Kazan last year, it's almost the same. give or take a little, right? Then the standard thing, besides the border issue, there are other pressing issues between India and China that need to be resolved. So this is a thing which will keep coming with different people and we must keep listening. They're not interested in resolving the border issue. Border issue is not entirely the bilateral relationship to a certain extent. We need to set aside some disputes to promote all round cooperation between the two countries. So, they say, yeah, border rehne do, we'll become good friends and then we will get to the border. But this is the formulation which Deng Xiaoping gave to Rajiv Gandhi, 1985. Says, let's leave the border, we'll improve our relations, and then we'll get back to the border. But what happened over this past 40 years? Exactly the opposite happened. We improved our relationship, but they came back to the border and last year. And then they have sided with Pakistan completely. Isn't it? So now they say, no, let's get away from the border. How can it be feasible? You know, I'm also commenting on their thinking. So I think we need to change track. You say, forget yeah, trade karenge, but border bhi saath karenge. Otherwise, no go. So I'll talk of the border maybe tomorrow, day after. We'll see. This guy, Zhao Rang or Zhao Rong, yeah. He's expressed a sincere hope that the trilateral summit between China, Russia, and India be held at the SCO platform. It didn't get held, didn't go through. There was no trilateral summit, but a trilateral picture came through, and that has set the alarm bells in the West. And we'll talk of that also maybe tomorrow, day after. Okay. So they are very keen on this Russia, India, China. Because the moment Russia, India, China trilateral or formulation takes place, it puts the West completely out. Just this one meeting, a lot of people are now talking of this as an alliance. It set large alarm bells in the West. Okay. Then this thing in Baidu, it says heads of state diplomacy helps China India relations recover from lows. And there's a guy called Wang Zhe. He's from the Institute of South Asian Studies in Sikar, that is China Institute of Contemporary International Relations. He's written quite a bit. He says the visit prevents Sino-Indian relationship from completely derailing after the border conflict and guiding the two countries back into the path of a dance between the dragon and the elephant. So that's the way he looks at it. China and India are inseparable neighbors. Cooperation benefits both. Conflict hurts both. And then, of course, the world's only two major developing nations with population exceeding 1.4 billion. Cooperation between China and India only serves their own interests, but also has far-reaching implications. Absolutely right. I always maintain. Historically, India and China have never had a problem with each other. I wouldn't say historically, civilizationally, we have never had a problem with each other. It is only after this Communist Party of China came into, being that this whole story has started. Okay, so it's the Communist Party which is the problem. We have to understand that. Okay, if the Communist Party goes, then things might change. But then that's wishing. That's if wishes were true, horses would have whatever. Okay, then he says the next article says China and India can pick the low hanging fruit first. And he feels in this article there are a lot of low hanging fruits. What these low hanging fruits are, one doesn't know. And this fellow, he's this guy called Zi Chao. He's the Center for South Asian Studies at Fudan University. A lot of guys have written. That's the point. That's why I got all this. Right? Now he talks of low hanging fruits, but his article is completely different. Okay. That's the thing. You have this paradox coming from Chinese writing. And I'll sum it up in the end. He says, there is a growing awareness in India of this paradox. He says, the harder it confronts China, the more dependent it becomes. And this is something which we have to understand. We don't like China. I mean, let's be very frank, no one in India likes China. But for us to take a harder stance against China, we have to be less dependent on it. And this guy is right. By becoming more dependent on Chinese imports into India, we are weakening our own hand. Who asked us not to make API? Okay. And then he says there are 4 drivers of India's apparent recalibration. He's identified. What are those 4 drivers? He says economic needs, dissatisfaction with US tariff policies, Washington's tendency to conflict India and Pakistan, and New Delhi's doubts about America's long-term reliability. And in this paper, he says out of these 4 drivers, give enough scope for USA. Rather, I'm wrong. These 4 drivers give enough scope for China to get into the gaps between the relationship between India and USA to its benefit. Okay. And then he says, New Delhi should go beyond this short-term maneuvering and go into a long-term relationship with China. And China, India is more mutually beneficial than India and USA. In all this sub-theme, get India away from USA at any cost. Right. Then he says the repeated missteps in India's US policy have not only thoroughly exposed the miscalculation and opportunistic nature of its US strategy, but also demonstrated that the speculative nature of Indian diplomacy has failed to keep pace with the rapidly evolving situation. So India is maneuvering, right, for US thing, and we maneuver and manipulate. So there is this sense of superiority and this righteousness that India is doing everything wrong. They have to come to us, only then it will be good. Modi government can only seeks 3 solutions. First, make substantial concessions in areas such as agricultural products, that is to USA. Second, expect a breakthrough in the US-Russia summit to lift secondary tariffs on India. Okay, so our happiness is dependent on how USA and Russia come to closure on their problems. If that happens, secondary tariffs will not be on us. But that's stupid, because that, despite the summit between Trump and Putin, secondary tariffs have not gone on us. So these are all formulations which they imagine. Okay. Third, this is the important thing. The Trump's policy towards India is not a practical pressure, but strategic adjustment. So we should recognize this, that it is a strategic adjustment of Trump. Hence, we should ease relations with China as soon as possible to reserve place for geopolitical changes. And in that context, he says India and China have a lot of low-hanging fruits to pick up. Then he says there are 2 tests that China-India relations face. First, India's domestic political game, where the pro-US compromise faction and the China hardliners still have influence. And the risk of Modi government policy fluctuations towards China should not be underestimated. So they detect that, they feel that the government, whatever it does, is hardline against China. To that extent, they're quite aware of what they're doing. Second, what he says is the essence of India's balanced diplomacy has not changed. For example, after announcing his visit to China, Modi still plans to visit Japan and continues to hype China-Russia energy cooperation in an attempt to lobby the Trump government. So he says these things will all decide how India China relations will go. Look, let's be very clear. We have given them the whole idea of our Prime Minister going to Japan is to tell them, look, we have other options. Our whole idea of having an India Russia relationship and making it stronger is to have a hedge. And that hedge is against Trump and the hedge is against Xi Jinping. I mean, that's our stated policy. They expect us to give it up. That is the two tests he's saying. You should give up that. Right? And we should have a nice thing that we go and suck up to Chinese. They're all tall orders. But we need to understand their expectations. Okay. Then he says, throughout Modi's third term, his policies have been repeatedly constrained by geopolitical misjudgments and unrealistic expectations of the United States. Well, I wouldn't say it's unrealistic expectations of the United States. We knew what our problem with the United States was always. And we were going along okay till the Op Sindoor. And Trump, jumped, took Pakistan into his lap. It's now coming out that there's a crypto deal between Pakistan and USA and his Nobel Prize. It's more due to personal reasons. So maybe once Trump goes, things will change. And maybe even now, even Trump will change. I think he will change. But let's wait. That's a different story. Whatever relationship with USA is our headache with them. That doesn't mean we jump into China's lap. Okay. Modi's government, China's policy has vacillated between pragmatists and intransigence. Then here comes a new thing. He says the strategic hesitation has exacerbated India's diplomatic isolation. So they feel, China feels that India is diplomatically isolated. Okay. And it reveals a harsh reality of India's strategic autonomy. Without the backing of strength is merely a castle in the air. That's the hyperbole he's using. But let's see, are we isolated? Yeah, definitely we have a problem with USA. That's okay. Let's have a problem with USA. Are we trying? We have to make good our equation with China. If not today, tomorrow, somewhere we have to keep things on the even keel. That's okay. We have to do it. Does it mean we have to run to China? No. Our equations with Russia are good. Our equations with Japan are good. And if you saw in the SCO meet itself, our Prime Minister met so many other people, including the leaders from Myanmar and Maldives and Azerbaijan and Armenia. I mean, they also matter, right? And we stopped Azerbaijan from entering SCO. All that we've done. And we sidelined Pakistan completely. So a lot of things have been achieved. So there's no isolation. And because of what we have done in SCO, today there's a huge backlash in the West. I see, a lot of people are talking, what have we done and how India is behaving. And now they say, look, let's correct it. So there will be a correction. Okay. Another article. Okay. It says, Modi's visit to China and the prospects for Indo-China relations. Can India transcend short game thinking? So they feel India is doing the short game thinking. The long game is with China. Okay. That's okay. That's the way looking at it. And then this thing that news which has come out where Mr. Modi has not taken Trump's call 4 times is also being hyped. It's there in their Weibo. Okay. And then he said the same thing. This guy, he says okay. Modi's realized he's been duped, dumped and turned. And hence he has turned to China and Japan. That's the story. He says, no, Modi has been kicked from the West, so he's gone to Japan. Well, these are their formulations. That's the way they're thinking. So that's quite hostile. And Yao Yunmei, right? Visit to Japan before China. This factor keeps coming. Remember, China-Japan relations are bad. Today there's a huge military parade being held in Japan. I mean, in China, of which I have clips and all that. Like, it's against whom? It's against Japan. Okay. So, but he says visiting Japan before China is Modi's little tricks and which must get our attention. And then what he says, he's the associate professor at the Institute of Socialist History and Literature in East China Normal University and the director of Center for South Asian Studies. He says this visit to to Japan, it's linked to US tariff war, right? Then it raises the question, will India compromise on US tariffs after Modi's visit to China? Okay. If US India agreement still possible, so will there be a compromise? So will India use this visit to China as a leverage to compromise with USA? All these questions are so. And then, of course, our Prime Minister has, driven home a very clear point. Modi's itinerary show that he will visit Japan before China and will not attend the September 3 parade. It's only the SCO meet. So that messaging is clear. That messaging is clear to China. It is clear to all those who attended SCO. We are not part of the SCO beyond the charter of the SCO. Whatever we deal with China is bilateral. And there's also a message to the West that we've gone there only for the SCO. We have not gone beyond that. Okay. Then he says Modi's decision to some extent reflects a tacit understanding between India and Japan regarding the historical understanding of World War II. Very important, because we are siding with Japan. Look, I'll talk of this business of World War II, how that military parade, analyze it. I'll probably do it tomorrow. But that's a different story. Okay. And then, but the way Chinese are doing it is for different purposes altogether. We have to understand that. Right? And then, of course, he says we can have some expectations out of this visit, but we should be rational and not overestimate it. So they also don't expect too much coming out of it. Right? Then he says, our Prime Minister gave out a statement that I'm looking forward to go to China and all that when he was in Japan. So why has he given it all those analysis they have done? And in this article, this is what comes out. He says India's current economic weaknesses have been starkly exposed. Due to US sanctions, India is unable to pay for international commodities in rupees. I don't know from where he got this. That we have to deal only in rupees. Right? While China also refutes this to settle in rupees, because our trade with China is not in rupees, it's not in yuan, it's only in dollars. But for some reason, they're spreading this within that India is economically hamstrung. Look, this is also part of their propaganda internally, because these are all internal to China. Okay, that China is strong, India is weak. Whereas we know the Chinese economy is weak today. It's actually tottering. Okay, it will not collapse because of the institutions of China are not different. It's one arm of the government and the other. It's not unlike other countries. The Chinese banks and the financial systems is just one arm of the government. It's not separate from the government, so they can manipulate it. Okay, that's a different story. While when Prime Minister Modi sought to increase agricultural products from China, Chinese representative demands when will India remove its anti-dumping duties on Chinese photovoltaic panels. So what he's saying is very simple. China should weaponize its trade with India. That puts us in a question again. Why are we letting this happen? What is it that we should do to decrease this dependence? Okay, what is this thing which we need to do? Okay, then there's another thing about Modi's special plane flew directly to Japan. Did he inform Japan before visiting China? All this nonsense. And then he talks in this about India having a multilateral balancing act. Again, very interesting. So China feels that India has a multilateral balancing act. And what does that multilateral balancing comprise of? It comprises of demanding markets, technology, and security framework from the USA. It also comprises of oil, gas, and weapons backup from Russia. It encompasses funding and supply chain support from Japan. This is important. They think we are getting funding from Japan. It involves extensive economic and trade cooperation and opportunities with China. As for them, we shouldn't be doing all this. But is there any country which doesn't do this? Even USA wants investment into China, USA. That's what Trump's tariff war is all about. Build factories here. They are getting oil and gas from other places. Even USA. USA is getting oil from us. Doesn't Trump want that $550 billion from Japan as investment? Doesn't What is this tariff war all about? It's about trade. So what is so special about India that it is doing its multilateral balancing act? Doesn't China do it? So we have to see all this the way they're formulating, you know, uh, their stories internally. Why Modi is eager to visit China? It's a sophisticated game of geopolitics, economy, and domestic strategy. Domestic strategy is India. And then, of course, the centerpiece of this is the decision of this visit is the result of comprehensive consideration of many factors, such as easing border tensions, domestic economic difficulties, and grand geopolitical ambitions. Modi's trip is not only a driving force of pragmatism, but also a carefully arranged strategic game. A lot of interest. That's why so many articles over a matter of about just 3 4 days, all in Baidu. Okay. Then there's another article. It says the United States smashed the heavy tariff hammer, and India relays the big news. Modi will visit China. That means the moment that happened, China did this. Okay. What is the main thing in this? It says India's positive signal to China is not only due to the factor of response of the suppression of the United States, but also the inherent logic of relaxation in China-India relations. So they're building logic. That's it. He says such structural contradictions, such as border disputes, Tibet-related issues, China-Pakistan relations, as well as India's concept of China and great power mentality, will still interfere with long-term development of relations between the two countries. This is probably the only article where I have seen that they have come to some concrete items where they feel that these are major issues. Otherwise, these are no issues. They have not spoke. They don't speak of Tibet-related issues. They don't speak of China-Pakistan, relations. They don't speak of India-China relations in their analysis, and they always feel that India is not a great power and China is the greater power. Only one of the few articles which I saw where these have come out. And then there's some realism in this article. The outside world believes that the plan to visit China, Japan, now he's talking of Japan, and previously received the visit of the president of Philippines, and at the same time, he's not afraid of the pressure of USA. And he continues to interact with Russia. That why very interesting, this part. He says in this article, this probably is the most pragmatic article coming out of China, which is staring at a reality. That India is now dealing with USA under tough conditions. It's still continuing its relations with Russia. It still has a separate parallel path with Japan. It started talking with China. It's also dealing with Philippines and more. And just to put it in perspective, Afghanistan has had two earthquakes, and we are the first responders there. Okay, so they they understand what India is all about. It's only that in their internal papers, internal analysis, they refuse to believe it, and they refuse to articulate it. Right. Then he says, can India and China resume pragmatic exchanges? Okay. He says, although China-India relations have warmed up, challenges still exist. India still regards China as an imaginary enemy. They are very clear how we regard them. At least they should be very clear how PR Shankar regards China. China remains my number one enemy. And that's what our Defense Minister George Fernandez said at the turn of the century. And I still believe that. Okay. India continues to be part of the Quad. So let us see whether we are part of the Quad or not, because Trump is not coming. How the Quad goes through is something which we'll have to see. Although, I don't know, here he's picked up. Although Modi's visit to China is significant, it is limited to Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. And he says trade imbalance and border sensitivity are still hidden dangers. So they have an idea of their realization, but they'll not accept it. Right? And this, after this article, after being abandoned by the United States, so they feel India has been abandoned. Modi plans to come to China for help. Should we be turned away or greet him with a smile? They feel we have gone to China for help. Begin. It can be seen that India is playing with the dance diplomacy, wanting to make a gap between China and USA. Its goodwill for China does not really want to improve the relationship between the two sides, but wants to use it as a chip to bargain with the US. They're right. We're not interested in China beyond a point, because we know they'll not bend. You see this entire story which I've said so far. And there's this guy, Victor Gao, that's what he says. He says, I've been to China, India many times. Of course, for other purposes, but this is something very interesting he spoken of. And we must be alive to this. That's why I put it. And I'll read it out and explain to you. I've been to India many times, of course, for other purposes. But I pay attention to the deployment of Indian troops. It has two characteristics. One is in the west, targeting Pakistan, Kashmir, and the Aksai Chenov area. He has heavy shoulders. So Victor Gao says that India has deployed very heavily in the western sector, Ladakh. On the other hand, in the east of him is our southern Tibet, and then the whole line surrounds him, which is an impenetrable fortress. So he says they are very clear that in the east it is impenetrable. In the west, we have heavy deployment. Okay, that's it. There are two characteristics: one east, one west. This is then along the Ganges River. The Ganges River is more than 2,300 kilometers long. Of course, the last section is Bangladesh, so 2,300 kilometers is in India. And it says along Ganges is an empty line with no heavy troops and no heavy troops. He's repeating it. What is he aiming at? And Ganges, heartland. Above that, who's there? Nepal. So what is the long-term plan this fellow is propagating? Get hold of Nepal and ensure PLA appears on the Nepal-India border along above the Ganges. And this is a long-term problem which we have to understand. And that is why our relationship with Nepal is very important. We need to understand the PLA thinking process. And I'll get back to this when I discuss the border. Why that railway line from Tibet to Nepal to that Kodari line down to the Tarai region, this will be dangerous for us in future. Why all the activities in China, I mean all the Chinese activities in Nepal are problematic for us? Because we don't have much deployment there. Nepal. So we'll talk of it some other day. When I talk of the border, I'll get back to this. Look, fundamentally, in the end, what do I say? Boundary is not negotiable as per them. All this, if you see, boundary is not negotiable. Hence, they don't want to discuss it. Trade is more important for them because their economy is going down. For that, India must open its borders. China will not. Whether it's for trade or apps or digital, nothing. Then China is more powerful than India and India must yield. India is playing a strategic game. They have no trust in us. As per them, India should be second fiddle to China. This is what their complete mega process is after all this 1 hour which I've tried to put across. See the various thinking in China. They're looking at Nepal, they're looking at in USA, they're looking at so many other issues. They're very clear. We have to be very clear. We cannot give China even one concession. Okay. I thought I'll give you an internal view of how China thinks. If you liked what I've put across to you, it might have sounded a little boring because I was reading off their media. Okay. But this gives you a thinking how they think. And if you like this, do press the like button and subscribe to Gunner Shot and also join in as members. I'll be more than happy. And I'll take on questions now. And I do see a lot of questions. We'll talk of it. How possible is a G2 posited in the episode yesterday? Well, it's not going to happen. And I'll talk of it later. Yeah. Let's go from the top. Right. Vasu Iyengar, thanks a lot. I've said good morning to you. Good morning, sir. Absolute meltdown, even more in Western media. Telegraph called India as an expansionist power and cited how we and Sikkim, Goa supported succession. Look, Rohan, I'll put it this way. Let's not get involved with what they say. Let's see what the other things are. We'll talk of India. I'll talk of this. I'll discuss this maybe tomorrow or day after. Let me get some more views. Views will come. There a lot of people are saying we made the wrong choice, right? But we'll see that. Yeah, KD Raya, Namaskaram, General Garu, and same to you. Thanks a lot. Always, good presentation and discussions. Why Indian political class is so timid? They are not timid. They're ignorant. The Indian political class is very lethal, but they're ignorant. They're very lethal amongst themselves. But when it comes to going outside, they'll act like idiots. And another problem with our in political class, I'm not talking the top guys, but the middle rung and the lower. This is a problem. Let's be very frank, and I have no hesitation in saying they're more interested in material things. What material things? Go to nightclubs, drinking, all those things. Their idea of foreign is like that. So, I mean, it has not changed. I've seen this happen many times. Yeah, sir, tapping into the Chinese mindset, they can clearly see us as emerging as a power and developing. Why superiority complex? You can't stop it. Yeah, that's the way they think on. That's the way the Chinese think. You have to deal with them accordingly. Right. Jai Hind and Jai Bharat. Good morning to you also. Um, Dragon is a god, goddess. Yeah, while protect the place where the rites are performed. Yeah, I agree with you. There's no dragon really. Uh, Mrs. Claire, Jai Hind, thank you. Yeah, Vijay Dam. If USA had about $600 billion to trade with China and a trade deficit of $400 billion, and in the present geopolitical situation, we can't go begging with slave mentality to USA. We are not going. I'm not asking you to go with the slave mentality, right? And you do what you want. That's your headache. I'm not asking you to go to US or not go. If China, what China wants to do, let it do with USA. You trifle with us, we'll screw you. Let me tell you this. You have already got screwed 2, 3 places, and we'll screw you. Yeah, China is not willing to give anything to India, which would actually make India work with them to improve relations. I agree with you. That's there. Uh, China also hyphenates us with Pakistan. Definitely. Let's not have any doubt about that. Yeah, Uday Kumta, thanks a lot for joining in as a member. Life with Krishna also, thank you for joining me as a YouTube member. So grateful to you. Okay. Everyone knows Chinese are Chinese. We need to trade with China and strengthen our military capabilities simultaneously. You're taking a biased stance in the present context. Yeah, I am taking a biased stance. I have to take a biased stand as far as I'm concerned in India. Right? There's no doubt about it. But trade can't be with China's only China, China's way. It has to be equally. First and foremost, the way I look at it, as far as trade with China goes, the first attempt and first thing, redress the trade imbalance. There are a lot of things which China can buy from us. Unless that happens, we shouldn't go forward. Only then we can talk of further trade. China-India relation works against Europe and USA. Joy Bangla, I don't know why you keep coming and keep giving all this nonsense, but I tolerate you. Okay. I keep hearing that Z has put up an alliance to counter USA. Not all this is nonsense. Nothing will happen. Don't even dream that China will give you a quarter. Yeah, Lofi, good morning and thanks a lot. Yeah, here I agree with you. We need to continue with our strategic autonomy and continue trade. There's no doubt about it. I have absolutely no doubt about it. Is the Indian media portraying matters in a more objective light? I'm afraid we are not. The mainstream media is not. That's the problem. Yeah, Indians being only integrated with the West, but not third world is crazy. Plenty of Indians live in Africa and our investments are, yeah. There's a lot of diaspora in Africa. Yeah. Tomorrow, if EU and USA remove sanction on Russian products and when they are start taking their energy directly, will our GDP fall? No, it will not. Don't worry. I don't think we should give too much importance to individual opinion in any country. It's a state policy that matters. Yes, I agree with you completely. It's the state policy which matters. But state policies get driven by people. Okay. So we should know how people are thinking. Okay. And in China, the state policy is disseminated by opinion through such opinions. You see, you have to understand. In normal countries, people like me give an opinion, and someone in the government takes this opinion in some form or the other, either ignores it or takes it into consideration and then makes it state policy. That's the democratic way. In the autocratic and the communist way, the state makes a policy and then gets all hold of its minions to disseminate that policy as opinion. So what we have read out today is state policy. Please understand, it's state policy being disseminated internally. That is the importance. Yeah, good morning and thanks a lot for joining in. Same to you, Jai Hind. Right, let me see. Yeah, dear sir, RIC currency anytime, nothing. No way RIC can turn into currency. Okay. Return of USA will be the game changer and it will be. Hope. Yeah, it will happen. They'll come, but it's going to be a slow thing. Will it be a game changer? I don't know. You know what the game will change? The game is that India will now be free to act a little more independently. Okay. And now here comes the thing that do we have the maturity to handle this new situation? You handle the crisis well, but can you do it on the long term? That means a lot of policies have to change. Thinking has to change. Chinese live in the same mind space as Bangladeshis. Yeah, okay. I understand what you're saying. The recent videos of dumping black rubbish or body bags from White House, are those Epstein files or anything? Well, I really don't know. Honestly, I mean, that's their internal thing. Let us see. We're not. Why should we get bothered about that? Yeah, in my opinion, should not be eager to restore status quo with US. Yeah, yeah. There's no hurry. There's no hurry to go back to US now. We should play them the way we want. Yeah, Xi Jinping and Kim together has rattled Trump. Yeah, I suppose so. Ahir Rao. Atmanirbhar Bharat, when we mention 100 countries every discussion. Look, Atmanirbhar Bharat doesn't mean that you can produce everything. No country will be able to be 100% Atmanirbhar. And we have a long way to go before we are Atmanirbhar. It's a process, okay? Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have not been able to have in the past 10 years. It will not happen ahead also. But we need to be strong where we are strong and make it stronger and get some monopolies in play. And then things will happen. That's the point. Life with Krishna, Jain sir. What are your views on Xi Jinping? Will he get another term if anyone other than Xi comes to power? How will it affect China-India relations? Big question. Okay, big question. And at this point of time, I don't have answers. I don't have answers because there is no one else in the horizon for Xi Jinping at this point of time. His health is not good. But will his ambition show, this thing that he'll go ahead with the whole story or not? And the issue will come up in 2027. There's 2 more years to go. So we'll have to wait somewhere around next year, May, June, we'll start getting some indications. But what is clear is that he's got internal problems. He's got internal problems with PLA. And there is a faction which is trying to displace him. And in China, all these are slow burning embers. We'll see where it goes. I will not be able to give you an answer immediately. Yeah, thanks a lot for joining in, Kaushik. Give it to all your friends also. News has come out that China is going to get to restrict fertilizer supply from October. Yeah, there you are. You will have this problem up and down. Let's see where it goes. How can India compete against Chinese manufacturing which uses cheap sanctioned oil from? See, we are not going to compete against Chinese manufacturing, right? We shouldn't do that. We will be fools. We should manufacture what we want. That's the first thing. And then we should manufacture what we can export. That's it. Let's go step by step. What's the difference between Russia's and China's communism? You have said previously that Mao destroyed China's civilization through communism. Did the same happen in Russia? Um, mm, yes and no. Okay. Mao destroyed China's civilization completely. On the other hand, the Russian sort of communism didn't do so. They they protected their own civilization. In fact, they increased it. Right? That's a difference. Uh, any case, Russian communism is dead. There's no point talking of it at this point of time. But having said that, maybe one of these days I'll do it as a theoretical exercise because it'll take me too long for to explain all this at this point of time. And you know the Maoist form of communism was way too violent because of Mao himself. Since US is unlikely to meet the whole global food demand, India could explore importing food products that is unable to produce in sufficient quantities domestically, showing, yeah, there are certain items which we import, but overall we are a net food exporter, so we don't have that much of a problem. But there is flexibility we can show with USA. We still need a deal with USA. Let's be very clear on that. Our industrialist needs to identify and do manufacturing here. Yeah, I have. I'm very clear about it. Indian manufacturing has to deal with higher land, water, electricity, and babudam taxes. How they can they compete with Chinese government on government? Look, that's the crux. That's what the government has to do. That's what if the government does the right thing, all governments and ensure that what have a focus on how to reduce imports from China. The moment you start reducing import from China, and you have a roadmap to do so, and you have a capability map to do so, things will change. Yeah, Munir is in China for that parade. We'll discuss tomorrow morning. There's a rumor that Shankar will leave them. I don't know. We'll see. China has been claiming more territory so that we don't start talking about our land. Yeah, I agree with you. But like I said, I'll talk of the border. In the next 1 week, I'll talk of the border. Okay. After last listening to your last two sessions, it is clear that China will continue to force their agenda in Bharat and interfere. Let's have no doubt at all. Okay. Your analysis on China is spot on. China is enemy number one. Yeah, there's no doubt. You see, the thing is, we need to tell the Western interlocutors that this is where we are. China is not our friend. It can never be our partner. It will always be our enemy. But that is something that the Westerners have to understand. And they can't be hard about it. They can't take advantage of this fact. Why are we failing to reduce our dependency? We have to ask Mr. Modi. He's been in power 12 years. He's a great leader. Why hasn't he done it? Just because we support him doesn't mean we don't ask him questions. Uh, this is the third government of his, and he's failed in this. Yeah, Too critical of Chinese relations at this point of time from Indian side? Does it reduce our bargaining capacity against China? We need to maintain a strategic silence at least till you correct. I don't think so. If you are silent with USA and silent with China, both will screw you. Okay. And one. Number two, what do you get from China? What are you getting from China? You've seen their discourse. You've seen their state opinion. You're not going to get anything from China, please. You have to have a hard line against China. Yeah, do we interfere in China and reach out to more pro-Bharat people? Like, yeah, you must. That's another leverage. You do anything in Tibet, they'll come running to you. But we are not done. That's the problem. Yeah, imagine the pain small nations like Philippines or Taiwan go through in seeing an enemy in China daily. Yeah, it's a pity. And that's what another thing which we need to maximize. So you're not taking a biased view, you have a pro-India view, which is what, yeah, I have no problem. I am biased against China. Why should I not accept it? But that bias is because, like you said, I am thinking for India. We can't all say good relations with China when we can't have it. While everyone is stating that India and China are getting into a relationship that is not going beyond starting direct flights and Kailash Yatra, how would US view this? US Embassy had a warm tweet yesterday. Yeah, they had. Immediately following that, Trump came out with another stupid tweet. If you see that, they are contradicting. Look, at this point of time, we have to give USA some elbow space. Don't expect USA to turn around. They have to do it on their own. Give them some space. Maybe another month or two, you will find a lot of problems with USA. Things will settle. Yeah. Appreciate your efforts to teach the young minds of India about geopolitics and diplomacy. Your insights are useful. Thanks a lot. Venkatesh, please press the share. Please press the like button, share, and subscribe. Yeah, thanks a lot. That's a request for everyone else. Huh? Why do Chinese think we have expansionist ambitions? Is it a classic case of their insecurity projected onto us? 100%. Yeah, Indian industrialists are greedy. Mahindra is going for an agreement with Chinese BYD for battery technology, a $40 billion company, but does not. This is the crux of Indian industry. They want profit without pain. They want money without anything else. I think SEO meeting is to bring USA on negotiating table. Maybe yes. Yeah. Oh, Jayan, thanks a lot for joining in. I've been missing you for a long time. Ingomborg Malik, good morning. Your views and suggestions are pragmatic. Thank you. Thanks a lot. One should also keep in mind politics inside USA. The unfortunate truth is that DJT is also using India. Yeah, I agree with you. But they'll come around. It will take time. We should be patient. Very good presentation. If they don't solve border, then they will be at a problem as they are declining 30,000 people per day. I agree with you. They look, see, most of these analysis don't take into consideration what China's problems are. We could continue with empty goody talks and promises with China and US and continue to improve Atmanirbhar Bharat. I agree. Yeah, don't believe China and the Communist Party of China. I agree with you 100%. What does India get from sanctioning Russian energy? Nothing. We'll get whatever we're getting so far. Yeah, I think we're done for the day. Right, I'll get back to you. Uh, what is there in the evening? Maybe we can discuss the military parade. Maybe we'll talk of the border. Let me see what is to be done in the evening. I'm not thought of it. Uh, Till then, have a great time. We'll meet at about 7, 8, depending on what time is feasible. Right? And thanks for joining in. You like the show, uh, put the like button, subscribe to Ghana Short, and also join in as a member. And I sincerely thank all of you who have been members and been continue to be members with me. Have a great day and Jai Hind.